What happens when you love your child deeply and still find yourself in a place you don't recognize? After the birth of her child, Katherine Connors experienced postpartum depression while remaining deeply connected to her role as a mother. When one unexpected modality began to shift something inside her, it didn't just support her, it changed the direction of her life. What she discovered about healing may challenge how we understand postpartum, the body, and what it actually takes to come back to yourself. Now, before we begin, if you're here because you're seeking truth, understanding, and a deeper relationship with your own life, make sure to subscribe and share this episode with someone who may be in a moment where things feel unsettled inside. Every conversation here is meant to offer perspective, support awareness, and remind you you're not alone. Welcome, Catherine. Thank you so much for
Welcome.
being
Whew.
here.
You got me choked up and we didn't even start
Oh,
yet.
oh, that's so sweet. Oh, you are so an empath,
Yeah.
obviously. Yeah, yeah. Or highly sensitive. That we could go in a whole direction with that one.
A bit of both.
A little bit of both. Yeah, I understand that completely. So, Catherine, can you go a little deeper into what you've lived through and how that experience shaped the work or perspective that you bring into the world today?
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, my struggle with postpartum depression was tough. I was going through it for about 9 months, calling around to every single counselor, therapist, groups, mom, get togethers I could possibly find about it. And I couldn't find the right person. I couldn't get the right company on the phone. I just really wanted to find something that worked for me, and it wasn't out there until I finally found a weekend retreat that was happening in my town. I was living in Bayside, Queens at the moment, and it said, "Heal yourself." And I was like, "I'm going. Please figure out how to take care of the baby for 3 days. I need this for me." So, at this retreat, I had no idea. I've never been to one. I had was not expecting anything. I just knew that this may be a solution because I've tried everything else. And they were working on polarity. And I've never heard of polarity therapy before. I didn't even know that that's what I was about to discover. But when she was taking turns, the teacher who I still study with today, her name is Heather Principe, um, had me up on the table to talk about the water imbalance that I still clearly have now because I'm still crying about it. It really changed everything. I felt the room just spinning, spinning, spinning. I felt like I was on the Gravitron. Remember that ride from like the fairs back in the
I
day?
think Oh, is that the one where the floor dropped out on you?
Yes, and you get just get stuck to the wall. And I felt
Yeah.
like I was
Oh,
stuck to
they
her
had it at
massage
Hershey
table.
Park. They had it
But
at Hershey Park many
yes,
years ago. I don't know if it's still there. Okay.
But I honestly was just laying there on her table. The room wasn't spinning at all. But for me, I was going through a deep unwinding, and I've never felt or experienced anything like that before. And it was just clearing everything out and opening everything up. And I said, "What did you just do to me? And how do I do this for other women?" And she's like, "Welcome back to your body. You have not been there since childbirth." And I was like, "You are right." I felt like I was living in an outer body experience the whole time. The whole world was like, wah, 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 so
Yeah.
far away. And
Yeah.
everything was going in and out, and I didn't know what was going on. Now I recognize it as like a deep awakening, and that my body just needed to go back to who I was put here to be. I didn't realize that this whole time I was just a shell of a person who I thought was living her best life, right? Until my
Right. Yeah.
son came along and turned
Surprise!
that upside down.
Surprise. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, we're going to keep doing this because this works. The doctors put me on Lexapro. It's a form of depression medication that just made me feel numb to the world. I had no response button, and I knew that I needed to get off of that. The day where my son, he was about 9 months old, and this was the breaking point. He started walking. and we had a community pool, and it was springtime, and he was able to walk right into that pool. And I was just like, well, at least I tried. And everybody else was yelling and screaming and jumping him to get in, and I just did not care at all. And that
Mm,
is so awful. And I'm glad that I'm able to admit that, because no other mom would ever, tell the truth that that's how they felt. But honestly, I was just like, well, I guess it wasn't meant to be, and just watched him fall into the water.
mhm, mhm.
And I was like, okay, something's got to change here. So I got off those drugs, and I threw them out, and I was able to really change because of this energy healing modality that does it all. So I'm so grateful that I found it, and it's changed me ever since. He's going to be 4 next month. So it's 4 years later. I'm still studying it, still working on it,
Yeah,
still being able to pay it forward and share this with other people. So, yes, I
yeah,
made it for sure. Every
you
year I'm
made
like,
it, you
is
made
this
it.
the year? We finally
Yeah,
made it.
yeah, and now he's gonna be 4, which means that he's gonna be way full of questions because
Yes.
that's all they do is ask questions at 4,
And
and
he
they're
is so
brilliant.
intuitive, so
Uh-huh.
brilliant. I ask him questions and learn from him.
Yeah.
To give you an example, the other day I was watching the TV show Chosen, The Chosen,
Mhm.
and he goes, "Are you watching your Jesus show, Mom?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I love Jesus." And I was like, "Do you remember him?" And he goes, "Of course." And I go, "Who else do you remember?" He goes, "Mary and God." And I said, "Who is your favorite?" He goes, "God." Like, no hesitation whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah. That's
And
so
it was
sweet,
just
but
so beautiful to have a conversation with him about heaven and who he was before he got here and everybody that he remembers. I was like, "Wow."
yeah, yeah.
Like, "Tell me
They're
more." I wanna know
I
everything.
keep emphasizing that with him though, because a lot of parents squash that, and this is the time frame between 0 and 7 when
Yeah,
they're very open and connected. So this is the time to be having those conversations with your kids to keep them open and connected instead of ending
sure.
up like we did, where we shut down, right? Right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions based on your story and what you shared. You know, first of all, what was the first thing I wanted? Oh, the thing with medications, a lot of people don't realize that when we are given medication for things like depression and anxiety, it literally shuts down our ability to feel.
Yes.
That's what it's made to do, and people who have been on these medications for years and years and then wonder why they can't feel anything, it's part of the process of taking that medication. So it didn't surprise me at all when you said you got into that place while you were on Lexapro, because you can't I mean, it almost numbs us. It's controlled numbness rather than self numbness. I
Right.
mean, at least self numbness, when we can feel our feelings, then we can experience those feelings and let them flow. With the medication, we can't do we don't have the capacity to do that within our body. I was on, uh, oh God, I don't even remember what it was, but it was an early stage of depression medication, and they still hadn't done an extended release formula at that time.
Wow.
And when I started taking it, I told the doctor, I'm like, 6 months, I already know what's going on. I know what's happening. I know it's an external situation that's causing this. I am not going to stay on this for longer than 6 months. And I never saw a therapist or anything during that time.
Uh,
And it was just a regular doctor who prescribed it. And I just remember when I first started taking it, I felt like I was in a fishbowl. I was like, I don't care. I don't care. You do whatever you want. I don't care. And I heard a lot of things happen in that moment when I didn't care that I would, looking back, wish didn't. But that's what I'm just trying to express. Like with medications, it's difficult when it's um, what am I looking for? Like if it's an experience in your life that's causing the depression, then
mhm.
when we take the medication, we take it in order to get on the other side of other side of the, you know, depression, which
Yeah.
means short time, but if we keep taking it, it keeps us there and we can't do
Right.
anything about our feelings and we need our feelings.
Yeah.
So,
And I have 2 close friends, and one is a doctor and one is a pharmacist. And they had an intervention with me and they said, "We need our friend back." And
Yeah.
they're the ones that prescribed this to me and said, "You got to get on this." And they kept saying, "Well, you have to stay on it for at least 6 months in order to feel the effects and the change of it." So I was staying on it for much longer than my body was telling me, "Get off this. Like, you don't
Yeah.
need this."
Right.
But,
Yeah.
they're my friends. So I was trying to listen to them because I was trying to do whatever it takes to just not feel that way anymore.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was trying to make plans to run away to California and seeing who could be able to take care of my son. And I don't know what was for me in California. It was just the furthest, most possible place I could go to where I didn't have to face motherhood and the struggles behind it. And
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
like, "No, that is not what you're going to do. You're going to stay here. You're going to be a mom and you're going to take this pill."
Yeah.
But it was also a challenge to get off the medication because once I discovered polarity and how well I'll be able to heal myself without the drugs, my head just started pounding like crazy. Like, "You need these drugs, take another half of a pill." And I was trying to like cut them in half and make them go every other day or every other week and stretch it out as long as I could. But I was getting so sick. So there was one other step that I have to admit I tried. It was wet cupping. Have you ever heard of that or experienced it?
Mm-mm.
So it's like you're going and getting cupping where they put all the suction cups on your back or wherever you need it on your body. But this lady, she actually uses a medical razor to lightly scrape the skin, and she's not cutting you open or anything. She's just opening up your pores. So when she
Mhm.
put the cups on top of you, it draws out stagnant blood and you can see how black and gooey it was, and blood is not supposed to look like that. And those are all the
Okay.
toxins that were stuck in your blood, not allowing new fresh blood to circulate, which is why my brain kept saying, you need more, because it didn't have any fresh blood in there to push it out. So this makes what cupping does instantly because it takes it out right there and then. If you were to just
Interesting.
do regular cupping without scraping of the skin and withdrawing the blood, it will circulate your blood, but it'll take a long time for it to find its way out elsewhere. So the combination of doing the
Yeah.
polarity therapy and the wet cupping got me clean and sober and ready to be Mama 2.0.
There you go. There you go. I mean, and that's interesting because I've had cupping done, and I know that with regular cupping, it just shows up on your skin as bruising.
Yeah.
And so it's pulling, but it's not it doesn't have an escape route because the skin's the largest organ in the body, and that's what protects us. And if that's very cool. I'm curious about that one.
Yes. Look up somebody in your area that does it because I highly recommend it.
Interesting. Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of women that needed to I needed assistance with becoming pregnant would go and see her because this helps with the fertilization
Interesting.
process and not having all that extra blood in your
It's
womb.
it's a good thing that I'm beyond getting pregnant, right?
Yeah,
We're not doing that anymore.
yeah.
I'm at my next uh growth
Stage of
level,
life. Yes, yes,
whatever that looks like. But I just
right.
wanted to share something else that you had mentioned. It's like you had said something about um escape, like you're trying, or did I think of that? I don't know.
Yes,
You were
no, no, I
talking to
did mention
friends.
escaping.
Yeah, you're talking about your friends telling you to do this and telling you to do that and all these different things. And this is I have experienced everything that you're talking about. Postpartum, friends telling me what to do, all these different things. And we want so desperately because we don't know personally because we never learned, which is why I said something to you about keeping up with your son because that'll put him in a place where he'll already understand all this stuff where
Yes,
we didn't,
absolutely.
right? So, as a human, we tend to want to escape being human. And what
Hmm.
I want to share, because this is the work I do with people now because I'm learning it and in understanding it. It's like learning how to accept the fact that we're human and we're going through this particular thing in our life is the thing that is creating the growth for us. But we get so scared about what's happening, about, you know, y- what's going on. And we in this generation, these generations from me and, whatever, down to how old are you, if you don't mind my asking? Okay. Okay. So
Yeah,
you're not, you're about 20 years behind me because I'm 61. So
yeah.
it's like in our generations, we weren't as open and we didn't have the parents or the community to keep us open even though we came in open. If that does that make sense when I say
Oh,
that?
yeah. Yeah.
So for us to recognize being human and accept the fact that we're human and we have our foibles and all the rest of that stuff, we also have or didn't have the capacity to understand what that meant because not only are we human, we are also the divine in form, right? So what happens, like, we get into these situations where we're trying to escape and we start reaching outside of us and we're giving all of our power away. And when we give all of our power away, that's a whole nother learning experience of how to take it back, you know? And so that's why I just wanted to share that because it's such a huge aha moment, or at least it's been for me over the past, I don't know, 4 or 5 months where I've been really digging deep into that. So when it comes to things like any experience that we have in our life as a human, it's giving us an opportunity to find the truth of who we are inside, which is that divinity. But we don't know that because we've had it cut, right? So I love the way you explain that because it shows how you went out for help, but then you came back in. And I'm wondering something. Do you feel like there was something that might have triggered the postpartum depression? Because
Yeah.
I've always believed, I want to hear what you have to say, but I've always believed that it's natural part of um potentially of being a woman, or it could be something where I was saying an experience for you to come back to who you are as a woman, maybe. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I'm curious.
Yeah, and I didn't even realize this at the time. I just, like you said, thought it was something that women go through. But once you figure out one modality, you do a deep dive and you start exploring them all. So I went to a womb surround, right? And
Oh, wait,
this
what?
doctor who was,
Say that again.
I went to a
Womb.
womb surround.
Please
And
define that as you go
okay,
through this, because I've never
yes,
heard of that
yes.
before.
This doctor who was performing the experiment had me laying down and breathing into my womb, deep belly breathing, and just experiencing everything that I felt in that space since Caden has
Mm,
been born. But my body went deeper. I guess I'm very open to this work because it brought me back to when I was in my mother's womb.
mm,
And so it does for a lot of people. This is
mhm,
like huge unwinding and goes very deep in a lot of his cases. Um, but I was able to see that when I was in her womb, that she was protecting me from something else as well, and that she was nervous bringing me into the world because she didn't want me to be able to see the darkness that was around her and everything that she had to go through as a woman and as a mother. And I was able to sense all of that. And then I realized that I've been carrying all of that fear and anxiety that she, till this day, still lives her life through. Unfortunately, she hasn't been able to find ways to calm herself. And she does. So she's actually a very religious woman and she finds her peace through prayer, which is beautiful. Um, but the rest of her life is completely in fear. Anytime you talk to her, "Oh, no, no,
yes,
don't do
yeah,
that, don't do
yeah,
that."
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I've been carrying and feeling that this entire time.
Mm,
And so now I'm gonna even take it one level even deeper than that. Unfortunately, right after my husband and I got married, we got back from our honeymoon and we got together with both of our families and we were celebrating birthdays. And they thought it was a good time to bring up to my husband and I that my father decided to have an affair and that a child is coming out of it. And that I now have a new baby brother who is 35 years younger than me
okay.
and was born during this whole entire wedding honeymoon phase process. And I was like horrified, horrified. I could not believe that something like this would happen. He just walked me down the aisle. They were my inspiration at that time. I believe they were married for 40 years, and I wanted that. And now they dropped this bomb on me when I'm supposed to be in my newlywed phase. And there I started going through depression too. I was crying
Ugh,
every single night. I just couldn't believe like my little perfect family that I thought I was in has been torn apart. And it didn't actually. My mother got through it and she forgave him and they're still together and they're helping raise this child on their own as if it's their own. And she's an angel. She really is a godsend that she's able to do all of that. I don't think I would have done the same situation, but they kept it together. And the little boy's 7 now, and he's still a part of our lives. And um, they got through it. And I was hurt because I didn't have a say in this. They didn't want to have family counseling. It was their decision and what they needed to do for themselves. And at that time, I did not understand. I said, but I'm your daughter. Don't you want to hear how I feel? And there was no talking about it because it was just going to bring up things that don't need to be said. And it was all swept under the rug and life went on. And I was not okay with that. And so again, I started carrying all of that stuff in my womb. And my
mhm.
son came shortly after, and it was all there, lying in my gut. And I didn't know how to clear it because I didn't know that the energy healing existed. And so I believe I carried that over. And it didn't come flooding out until after he was born. And so that was what literally stemmed to a deeper, darker depression than the one that I was already facing because of my family. So, unfortunately, I
Yeah,
do know that there is a root cause to this problem
right.
because of all the work that I've gone through to find that.
Yeah, and in that process, have you come to the realization that it's not even about them?
Right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
I've been able to forgive them as well, and now everything's wonderful, because I realized that it wasn't about them. That they have their own story, their own journey, and now I'm on my own, and we're each doing this separately, right? And I can't carry that with me any longer. Not my cross to bear. And so once I released all of those burdens and was able to forgive and forget and move on, it tremendously helped me with the healing process. But
yeah.
that wasn't easy to get to. That was a lot of meditation and yoga and reading books. Radical Forgiveness was a really good
Oh,
one.
that's a good book.
I love that book.
That's a good book. Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
I find it interesting though in situations like that as I've gotten older. And keep in mind, I didn't know any of this stuff when I was your age.
Mhm.
But as I've gotten older and hearing stories like this, to me now when I hear them, it's like, so I wonder what the other piece of the story is about this child that was brought in
Yeah.
to give opportunities to your family, you and your family, on how to love or how to, have compassion or whatever it is. Because my belief at this point, and I don't know if you believe this or not, a lot of people I'm finding do, but it's almost like it's like we choose, our souls choose certain things that we want to learn in this lifetime.
Mm.
And it's not necessarily the actual story that we pick or the actual experience that we pick. Say, for me, I want to learn about peace. So, guess what happens to my life? Complete chaos.
Yeah.
So, it took forever, like literally over 35 years for me to discover exactly what that piece looks like. And it has nothing to do with anything outside of me. It had nothing to do with any people outside of me. It had nothing to do with any of that. It was the inner peace that I felt when I finally let go of all that stuff. So when you talk about your little brother, it's
Yes.
almost as if that child, he chose to come in. He might have chosen to come in, or you two got together up there, you know, before the souls came to earth. And he said, you said, I want to learn about compassion. And he says, okay, I'll show up in your family through this route. Well, maybe he probably didn't know exactly what it was going to look like, but I'll show up in your family and we're going to learn about compassion. Right. And I feel like there's a truth behind that because it just, if you sit with it, it kind of makes sense,
It
when that
does.
stuff happens, right?
A
right?
beautiful way to look at it. You're teaching me an even more deeper lesson now. I'm like, I love the way you put
Huh? Yeah.
that.
Thank you. Thank you. So, what was it like? And or did you come, which just sounds like it, but I want to hear the story behind this. Did you come to a big awakening through this path? Because you mentioned the awakening, and that's the whole point behind this podcast is about
Yeah.
awakening ourselves to who we are as humans, right? So, what was that like for you?
So before my son was born, I decided that I was going to give up a ton of things for Lent that year. I wasn't even pregnant yet. It was COVID, and I was like just hitting the bottles way too hard, like wine all day, every day, because we were free with nothing to do. And I was like, all right, enough. I'm giving this all up for Lent. Right. And I was like, I want to see what it's like for, 9 months for women to go through and not, have something to drink. For me, I was, in my 30s living in New York City. I was actually pursuing a career in Broadway in musical theater. Right. And
Nice.
thespians are just lively and
Yeah.
full of life and always out at parties and networking. And I was involved a lot with a ton of trade shows and events and everything. I was out every single night of the week. And I was like, I want to know what it's like to just like be relaxed at home with my husband, enjoying ourselves and each other without any of this involved. So I gave up drinking for 40 days and
There's
I
that
started.
40. Tell people what that's about because that's a,
So yeah, so 40
yeah.
days is the Lent leading up to
Okay.
Easter. And I grew up Catholic, and we believe that we need to give up something in order to cleanse ourselves inside and out to prepare for the Easter celebration. So that's that year I gave up alcohol, and I really needed to. And I never thought of myself as an alcoholic. I was just always out having a good time. So at this point,
On each other, but we're not gonna go there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
There's just a
this is what led up to it though. During that time, I started getting so sick. I was dizzy all the time. I was throwing up. I was nauseous. And maybe I was like, oh, maybe I am pregnant. But I wasn't. And they ended up putting a heart monitor on me and they were doing all these tests. I was like coming in and out of consciousness, kind of like what I was after I gave birth. But this was different. And
let
I
me ask you
realized,
Catherine, let me ask you a really quick question. Was this happening while you were abstaining from the alcohol or
mhm,
after? Okay, because
no, wow, yeah,
it almost sounds like what do they call that?
like a
When people
withdrawal.
yeah, withdrawal symptoms.
Yes, yes, but, I didn't think it was that bad. I didn't think I was that toxic, but
Mm.
I was,
Yeah.
but now I realize that that was just my body clearing out everything that I needed to get rid of that no longer served me, that was, keeping me from my full potential back
Yeah.
then, and was
Yeah.
now opening up, and I
Yeah.
didn't realize that until recently when somebody came to me with all of those symptoms. I was like, "Oh,
Right.
but I went through
Yeah.
this is the awakening.
That's
This is
so
it."
cool that you say that because when you first started talking about your other things that were going through where your body was rejecting, like the medication, you were talking about your body rejecting that not only is it trying to clear out things that don't serve you, but I also wonder if it's also telling you um that this is how like for me, I found out the hard way I was allergic to alcohol. Like I can't
Wow,
even take a sip of
lucky you.
wine without my
That's
lips
good.
going numb. Right?
Yeah.
So, but I love red wine, and it's
Hey,
like, no, you're not allowed to do this because you've got bigger things to do in your life than this. So that's what that sounds
that's why
like
it's
when you
coming up
talk.
as an allergy, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah, yeah.
no, no, no.
No,
Uh, yeah, so it got so bad to the point where I ended up in the hospital with IV drips, and they were told me that I was dehydrated and malnourished and all these crazy things. And I was like, I don't think so, guys. Like, this is just a big purge, and I'm just releasing
yeah.
everything.
A
And
healing crisis.
yeah,
Usually
yeah.
it goes all right. Yeah. Okay.
So shortly after all of this finally cleared out and I was starting to feel better, I was with child. And I wasn't in the beginning, but it was a few months later, I was pregnant, and I was like, "Wow," and that was a big surprise. We weren't even trying because of everything that happened with my father and how my parents were raising a brand new child of their own. I was like, "Well, that's supposed to be our time, but this cannot be our time. We have to spread this out. I don't know how long it's gonna be, but it's not gonna be anytime soon." And then all of a sudden it was happening. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what is happening?"
Yeah.
And so then I started feeling sick all over again, but this time I knew it was something different. Um, so that's how I really knew, and I was like, "Okay, I've got to do some deep searching here." Because I was like, I felt like I was a good person doing all the right things, right? And I always loved doing yoga and meditation and all of that anyway, but I knew that there had to be something else, something deeper, but I didn't know what it was. And I remember just constantly always sitting there thinking, like, what else can I possibly try to get myself to recognize what's next? And so that's why I started reading all of these self-help books. And I always have been into them too, but I was reading ones about like money and businesses and just not the right self-help books until I finally finding a soul's journey and all of the right ones. And I was like, okay, this is what's going on for me. We're clearing everything out. And now I could start going down the right path. And so I felt like
Or the
my
rabbit hole, depends on how you wanna look at it.
definitely. But my son came into my life to help teach me a lesson too, because we weren't expecting that at all. And so I even asked him too. I said, "So why did you choose me?" And he thought long and hard. And then he said, "Daddy." And I said, "Oh, because daddy needs a purpose too, right?" And he's like, "Mm hmm." And now it's my husband's turn. Now he's going through a big awakening and I love it. It's like, finally, 5 years later, you're
Yeah,
catching up to me here because
that's
it's a
cool.
little tricky when you're both not on the same path at the same
Yeah,
time.
for sure, for sure.
But
And at the same time, it's also that's how it works because we all go on our paths in different ways anyway, right?
yes, yes.
Um,
But
I want
so
I
happy for him.
wanted to were you finished? I'm sorry, were you finished with that
Yes,
story?
yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So, but I had a question pop in because I know that you had started to say the direction of your path and you're learning all these new things and all these things are opening up for you and clearing as the other stuff clears out. I have learned a lot about what while we were waiting to have this conversation, I found some things online and you actually sent me an article which I wanted to bring into this, which kind of leads into the work that you do. But what else have you done since you started down your new path? Like, can you get into I know about the working with the horses. That I would love for you to bring that in here. And met you at a mind body spirit expo type of thing and you were doing your tell me polarity therapy there to just bring more people to understanding what polarity therapy, and we had a great conversation when I stopped off. And so those two things, share that and then just share some of the other things that you've done since you've been going on this path.
Absolutely. So I continued to study with my teacher for the following year after I did that workshop. And I had enough hours to be able to become certified to do this for other people. So when I graduated that June, we decided that we were going to up and move our lives because New York was not it anymore. It was definitely not helping with the depression because you have to walk up and down flights of stairs with the baby strapped to you on the front, laundry strapped to you on the back, down in the basement, blocks away. You were able to find
Trees on the
parking.
slide, right?
Yes, it was awful. It was awful. So my husband's job asked him if he would like to relocate down to Florida because he was in charge of the five boroughs in New York and Florida is booming. He's in construction sales. And they asked him if he could come down and have their New York guy here. And I
The
was like,
sixth
yeah.
borough. Is that what they
The
call it
sixth
now?
borough.
I think they
Yes,
call
that's
it the
where we
sixth
are
borough
now in the
now.
sixth
Yeah,
borough.
here we are.
So, yeah, my we were like, this will be so much better for Caden because he's a very active baby and we need to get him out of this apartment. He needed more space. He needed to be outside. And we were going back and forth to Florida the whole time things were shut down because Florida wasn't. And so it became like a second home to us. We had so many friends and family that moved down here. We're like, let's just go. And I was kind of after I had Caden anyway, I couldn't really do much theater because that takes a lot of time and effort, and I didn't have that anymore, and my full time and attention went to him. So I decided that I could do this work now from the beach. And so when I got my certification and we up and moved here, we're in Vero Beach, Florida now. And the first thing I did is got myself a little massage table and I went and set it up right on the beach. And anytime that I had free time, now that my son's in preschool and a little older and I could drop him off for a couple of hours, I just go and sit there for a couple of hours and I offer my services to anybody who walks by and explain to them what it is that I do. And then as I started getting a more and more traction, I started signing up for more and more events like the Mind, Body, and Spirit Festival. I also do a Spirit Fest out of Spark of Divine. I do Chosen out of this place in Sebastian, which is an artisan market. Now, this weekend, I'm going to be doing the Native American powwow coming up. I'm so excited
Yeah,
that they
cool.
invited me to come and be a part of that. So, any little thing that I can get this out there. And I love being able to be mobile to do this outdoors in nature because
Mhm.
polarity actually works with the five elements. And we find imbalances with all five ether, air, fire, water, and earth in the body. So why not be surrounded by all of those elements outside as well?
I've gotta
Um,
interrupt you for a second, it's just what I do, because something hit me. You said you were gonna be at a Native American powwow, but my mother used to, live just off of a reservation. I think it was well, she one was in Oklahoma City, and the other one I think was in Colorado somewhere. She ended up marrying a Native American. That's
oh,
the work she was doing back then, but this was like it was one that first came out, I think
yes,
something like what, the late like 50s or 40s or it was no, this would have been after, I'm sorry. Um, maybe the early 70s. Let's try that. But it's interesting when you said the Native American piece of it, I had this like jolt of memory that the Native Americans, there's some kind of connection between some of the medicine work that they do and
yeah.
polarity therapy. And
There is.
it,
Yeah, our teacher is super into working with the Native Americans to help expand all of this work. And when
interesting.
I explained
Yeah.
that to them and how this is very similar to what their medicine men or women were doing, traditionally, they were very open and acceptive of this work and
That's
being a
so cool.
part of their program. Um, and also, since I moved to Vero, the most crazy things have been happening. I feel like there's a big vortex here, and I was meant to be here in this land because we never heard of Vero Beach in our lives. We just up and moved here. And the minute I got here, somebody came up to me randomly. I didn't even ask. It just came out of their mouths, and I was like, "What did you just say to me?" They said, "You were once a leader of your tribe here in Vero Beach, and you were called back to this land to help your people once more." And I said, wow. I didn't even know that we had past lives. I've never even heard of that before. And I said, okay, I'm going to accept that and take that with me and honor that because that is beautiful.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so now I feel like I'm going to now finally be reconnected with my people and figure out what it is that I'm supposed to be doing to help everybody here back in this land.
Is
um,
there a try or a I know Miami has one. I know there's one down south, like in home pretty close to Homestead or something, and then there's, of course, there's a few and well, I can't think of the name of the tribe, the main, group that was in, Florida that's
Florida
in
is
that
very
area.
known for the Seminoles.
Seminole, yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
everywhere in Florida. But
Right.
before the Seminoles came around, there was another group called the Asai Indians, and they're known as the Lost Tribe of Indian River because they were all set up on the waterfront over here until the Seminoles came along, and then they were scattered. And we're only now and discovering pieces of their tribes that were
Okay.
here. And so there's
Okay.
beautiful museums, everything. It's very cultural here. I love
That's
it.
very cool.
My father's family is also from Colombia, and they're very indigenous there. So
Mhm.
I'm asking around as much as I can to my roots over there to figure out like who in our family did this work before. Where is this coming from me? Because unless I was a starseed and just planted right in the middle of my family and it didn't belong with them.
You
But
know,
I feel
wait,
like
now where in South America is your
they're
dad
from
from?
Medellin, Colombia.
Okay,
And
so you have huh. It's almost as if that you not only past life, but generationally, there's medicine woman, medicine man energy coming from you anyway, which is
yes,
probably another reason why you're doing this work.
yes, yes,
I mean, I
definitely.
picked that 'cause a lot of people from South America that I've met have seem to have that, or even if it's not first generation, because you're what, second
Second
generation?
generation now. Yeah,
Yeah,
my father
so
kicked
even if it's not that, it's still in your DNA, so
right.
it's pulling you. That's why your interest is that, and that's
Definitely.
why the other stuff is kinda going "Doot, doot, 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 doot." Let's find out about real stuff here that happened in my family now.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
but the
that'd be
more
cool.
questions I get, the more they just think it's crazy. They're like, "Oh, yeah, your aunt was doing that stuff, but she's bipolar. We don't believe all
Of
of that."
course she's bipolar.
No, she's not bipolar.
No,
She
well,
was
and
just right.
that's something I'd like to talk about that then, because
Yes.
when people don't understand something, they create a diagnosis for it. And a lot of people who have deep indigenous roots, who know how to connect with nature and with the earth and all that kind of stuff, and especially like witches isn't even, it's a
Right.
made, right? It's like when you have a connection with the earth and when you can see things beyond what is being presented to you as programming, then you're bipolar or you're this, you're that. What? It's not true. It's not true. It is who you are as
Right.
part of what your gifts were that came down to this earth to
And
help
it's
people. And when they call me
misunderstood. Yeah, I
exactly,
found they said that
exactly.
the animals would just come to her and lay on her and they would feel better, and they didn't even realize that the animals were sick until later, somebody would come and say, "Oh, yes, this dog's experiencing this," and then meanwhile, she had this gift with the animals, and
Right,
my
right. And then
father was always really
race.
good with the animals. He would always,
Yeah.
like, swear that he could talk to them, and I loved that about him. I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
"Wow." I would brag
Cool.
about it as a little girl. My father can communicate with the animals. So I always had this longing inside of me to be able to work and communicate with the animals too. And now I know why, and I've read every book out there to learn how to communicate with animals. So I'm working towards opening up that gift.
And that
But
brings in the horses, right?
yes, yes,
Yeah,
and
okay,
I know
cool.
in the beginning you mentioned I'm empathic, which I know that I am because I can feel what the animals are feeling, and
Mhm.
I then pass on what it is I'm feeling to whoever owns the animals. And they are saying, "Yes, yeah." Well, like, for example, I was working with there's a ranch 2 blocks up from where we moved to. I could literally walk over there, and I have 24 rescue
Awesome.
horses available to be able to work
Mhm.
with, and they love when we come around. I bring my son, and we just have a great day, like, working and petting the animals, grooming them, whatever they need. But one day I was working on this horse's leg, and I started sweating like crazy, and I said,
Mhm.
"Why am I sweating when I touch this part of his leg? Something is wrong here." They said, "Oh, yes, that's where we give him injections." And so I knew like that his injections were now coming out through my pores. So once that started happening, that was like the very first horse that I worked on with them. Then I started feeling everything that every horse was doing there. And then they started welcoming me and calling me back and asking me questions about their animals. So I said, let's do an experiment. I said, I'm going to set up my table here, just like I do on the beach, and let's see if the horses will come around, and we could do the humans, we could do the horses, and let's do this all together. The most profound thing happened where the horses started coming and laying their heads on the human bodies exactly where they needed it. So I was working in the middle of the body, holding on to their, doing some cranial sacral work, holding the head, holding the tailbone, and the horses came and laid their head on the human head, and laid their other horse's head on the human's foot. So all of the poles were being balanced at the same exact time.
I love that.
And I have a photo of it, and I need to blow this up and put it on my wall one day if I
Yeah.
actually have a studio space, but I don't see that in my future. I see my future being outdoors, like, on a retreat type environment, being able to do this, in nature forever. But if I do ever have an indoor space somewhere in a barn, I will blow up this picture of these horses working the
Well,
poles with
you
me.
have land, you have a spaces where people can come stay in, and I've already had this vision, so I'm just sharing it with you.
Yes.
In tiny houses, you have a main building
Yes.
for gatherings, for community, for cooking, for, with this
Yes.
big long table and a place people can sleep in there too and all this stuff.
Sounds
And
perfect.
right over the fireplace
Yes.
is that picture.
There you go. We're manifesting this, putting it
There,
into
we're
existence.
manifesting.
That's
That's
where I want it.
wonderful. That is so cool. I
Um,
love how horses work with us.
yes,
It's just I have one quick share about a horse that worked with me
please.
last year, and then I'm gonna get into these. I have some questions I want to ask you that I ask all my guests, but a friend of mine and I did a writing group sort of thing at a horse farm. I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was in Florida, and we're sitting there at a table, and there's like three people there who were experiencing the actual writing group. And then we had the people there from the farm who were helping and, kind of explaining to us the actions of the horses and why they were doing these certain whatever they were doing or whatever. And it had been like 2 hours since we sat down. I'm sitting there, I'm talking, and all of a sudden, um, this one horse comes up to me and nearly knocks me out of my chair. He pushes on my chair, and I'm like all I did, I knew there was a reason, but I didn't know what it was. So I looked over and I said, What just happened?" And she's like, "Stand up." And I was like, "Okay." And he just stood there right up on me and just stared at me. And she said, "Your blood sugar just dropped." And he picked up on that because you haven't eaten anything, and we're gonna take a break so you can go get something to eat. And I'm like, and I knew I was feeling off, but I
Yeah.
was ignoring it because I was doing the little, writing group thing. And I'm like, okay, I guess I can't ignore this anymore because he's gonna keep shoving me over to the food table, right? But they know. They absolutely
It's so
100%
intuitive.
know when stuff is going on. They're so in tune
Absolutely.
with the earth. It's insane how horses are like that. So,
So I've been working with them ever since because of that. Once
mm,
it was a summer camp where we decided to explore it for the very first time, and all the children wanted in. So every day I would return back and do another session with another child. And I was like, okay, we're doing this. We're going to get a sign. We're going to be open for business, and this is where we're going to be working going forward. So it's now
it's
polarity with the ponies,
Let
and
me tell
people.
you something, Missy. When I get
Yeah.
myself back for a visit down to Florida, I'm coming. I want to experience. I've never
Yes,
experienced that directly, so I really would love to. And maybe we can do another like
please.
a share, not necessarily an interview, but we could do a share while it's happening to put on my website or whatever. We could do. I think that would be very cool to share that and see where that goes because I've done work with people online before in interviews, but I've never done anything like that before. So I think that
Okay,
would be cool to share with people so they
come
can
on back.
experience. Right?
Absolutely.
So, we'll
Yes,
talk
yes.
about that. We'll talk about that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Because the other day I had a cancer patient who was able to remove all of her own tumors holistically through teas and other things that she's been trying. But there's one last one that's still cancerous right there on her spine. And I had her laying on my table facing up, but the horses kept coming over and trying to flip the table. And I was like, okay, why don't we just have you flip over? And when she did, they literally, I had my hands over her spine. They nuzzled my hand away, like were like grabbing their teeth and pulling my hand aside
Yeah,
so
we're gonna
they
do
could
this.
nuzzle their little noses into her tumor and laid there for the whole rest of the session right there on her spine exactly where it was. And that's what they were trying to get to. And I was like, yeah, this works. This is
Did you
incredible.
hear any did you hear any feedback from that yet, or
Yes. Oh, she wants to come back as soon as she can, and
yeah? Did it
she was
help make the
crying,
tubes
she was hugging the horses, the feedback was
nice?
right there, instantaneous. She got up,
Yeah,
her back felt so much better, she said.
nice. Is it
And
Do we know if it's shrinking the tumor or we don't know that yet?
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I would love to be able to see some test results if she does go back.
That
I
would be
know she
cool.
was trying to do the infrared scans where she can see it better rather than doing a mammogram or something like that, right?
Very cool.
Um,
Very
yeah, so that's the work that I'm doing now, and I still continue to do the polarity therapy exactly. I was trained on humans, but my teacher said as long as I could turn in my reports the same way as I do for a human, she will accept them of the animals. So we had to do about 100 reports in order to get enough hours. I wrote her another 100 reports, all based on the animal work that I've been doing.
wow,
Since then,
wow.
I've been able to do this work on. Um, my neighbor has a bull mastiff, and I was working on her dog the other day. I was working on a baby cow that was born and not able to stand, and just doing the polarity with the poles of his legs to help him get it back up there. At the end of the session, he was standing but not walking yet. So I'm hoping
Mhm.
to be able to keep working with him to get him walking.
That's so cool.
Um,
That's so cool.
yeah, but I've done it with the ocean animals. There's a lot of manatees here and a beautiful cove. I don't know if you got a chance to go to the Sebastian Inlet while you were down here, but I worked out of this cove, just bringing my son there to play. But the manatees come up to you. And I was just laying my hands over them, and you're not supposed to touch them. So this was all done energetically. But they rolled over to show me where they were hit by a boat and stayed there and let my hands stay on top of them for so long. Like everyone was coming around and taking pictures, like, wow, what's happening? And when they were done, they flipped up their tail to wave goodbye and just zoomed off.
That's bringing tears to my eyes because I love that kind of work. That's so
Yeah.
amazing. I love that.
I just
Um,
feel so fulfilled now.
yeah, that's one.
I'm so
That's one.
happy I found this because I never would have living in Manhattan.
That's right.
There was a
In
reason
Central
why.
Park, maybe in Central Park, but
Yes, maybe with the
not
squirrels, right?
yeah,
They're a little aggressive
get
there.
squirrels in Florida too. They're just littler.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is one thing you would offer someone who knows something isn't right in their life and doesn't know what to do next?
Yeah. So what we do is a deep dive through meditation when they work with us, and we go back to the inner child in them and work with through higher, lower self to find the time where they did feel right, where they did feel good again. And I teach them how they can go back to that place anytime where they don't feel right and something is quite off, and that they're able to tap into their higher self on their own and continue with the healing process for themselves. So this way they can pull themselves out of whatever it is that they're going through, or get to the core root of the problem and find out where that's all stemming from by finding their lower self and perhaps something that they've been carrying from their mother's womb, like I did, to figure out why this is coming up for them. And a lot of people, when I walk them through this meditation, have an aha moment. Light bulbs go off, and they realize that they're in pain because they haven't quite forgiven the situation of the time where, they got hit by a car and now their leg hurts for the rest of their lives, right?
Yeah. So
But
that's what you're
they're
saying. It's like going back, like from your own experience, something that you would offer that you learned was the forgiveness piece. Is that what you mean? Okay.
exactly,
Okay. I
yes.
want to make sure I understood that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How would you define awakening?
I would define it as a moment where you are finally conscious of your entire self from head to toe. You start feeling everything around you. You start realizing that everything has a purpose and a meaning. Everything looks brighter, and for me at least, it's more beautiful. I'm stopping to smell the roses and enjoying every last tree and bush. I wanna just hug them all.
I hear
There
you.
is nothing more you wanna do but to keep going down that path to find your purpose and realize why you are awakening. It takes over. I really could not stand another day of being in New York or another moment of going through the hustle of trying to be in the entertainment world. I needed to be here and do this now, where I just let that all go. So embrace it. If things like that are happening to you and your friends and family don't understand, that is okay because you can move on and be comfortable and be safe and put up those boundaries and go to them when you need them, but be able to distance yourself from them when you don't, right? And find new friends, find new family, find new community. And that's all going to happen. Awakening isn't always this beautiful, picture perfect thing that we think of, like, walking into the light and right. It could be, but most
Oh,
of the time it's
yeah.
because you're coming out of darkness.
Yeah,
You've
exactly.
gone through something in order
Good
for you to
description.
be able to
Yes.
realize for yourself, like, something needs to change here,
That's right. That's
and so it
beautiful.
does.
I love that. I love that. My favorite part of awakening, actually, believe it or not, was the dark night of the soul part when you're I just remember, like, screaming and sweating and crying um, and mixing all these just getting at, and then when I was done, it was like, that's when the, "Oh," comes in because you're, like, free of all that stuff. So,
Yes.
yes, I love that. I love that so much. So what do you believe soul divinity is?
Oh, just being able to tune back into yourself, your soul, the higher being that brought you here, really just connecting the mind, the body, and the soul and making sure they're all aligned, that your heart is talking to your soul and not letting the mind get in the way. and, and
Yes.
and and truly just listening and understanding and following what you're being guided to do without outside influences. Because this all sounds fun and dandy when we're sitting here in our offices on a podcast, but then you get out into the real world and there's distraction and this person pulling you this way and other people wanting and needing you. And it's really just staying focused, staying on your path, and living out your soul's divinity here and what you need to do for you.
Lovely. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Okay, thank you. How can people get in touch with you?
So I have a new website now. It's called PolarityEnergyHealing.com. I couldn't believe it was available, but it is, and I took it.
Good for
All of my
you.
social media matches the same at Polarity Energy Healing. And my emails, you could directly contact me on there. You could directly book with me from there. But if you want my direct email as well as Katherine Mary Connors at gmail.com. And I'm happy to talk with everybody. I also always introduce a 15-minute complimentary session to just chat with you and familiarize yourself with the process and what we'd go through if you're interested in booking. I also have a free intro to polarity call every first Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. And that's a whole hour long where we could just chat and go through what everybody's going through on the call together as a group and learn a little bit more that way too.
Nice, nice. That's so cool. I love that. Okay.
Okay.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
Just to be able to tune into yourselves, take time for you, especially if you're a new mother or a new parent, even as a father, um, to find time for you, even if it's just to go for a quick walk, just to breathe, clear yourself, and not allow your ether to feel compressed. Just give yourself the space you need to be able to continue to heal yourself because we're all going through something. Right. And even if sometimes we feel like, no, everything is good, life is perfect, that could sometimes be being stuck in a higher self too. You need a good balance of up and down. Otherwise, you won't see the good and the evil, right? The bad from the good or the ugly from the beautiful. So just take the time to check in. Every morning when I wake up, I just do a self scan from head to toe, asking God to bring down light and love to fill me up and be able to pass that forward to anybody that I meet throughout that day. So if everyone did the same and we all shared our light with one another, this world would be a much more peaceful place. And you'll get your purpose a little quicker to
Exactly.
find peace on this earth.
Very true. Catherine, Thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today. You've reminded us that even in the midst of loving deeply, there can be places within us asking to be seen, and that meeting them can lead us back to ourselves in a new way. And to our audience, may this conversation remind you that what you're moving through can open into something meaningful. Thank you for being here with us on Awakening Soul Divinity.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Click on one of the videos below to keep going on your healing journey. And don't forget to subscribe.